Book Club. I'm delighted to have Trevor Wood with me. I always love it. You always come back and talk to me for new books.
I do. It's always a
Always
pleasure.
makes me smile. So introduce yourself for anyone who hasn't met you yet. Can't be that many of us left.
Nice to hear. Hi, I'm Trevor Wood. I'm the author of the Jimmy Mullen trilogy, which began with The Man on the Street and was followed by One Way Street and Dead End Street. And I'm also the author of my brand new book, You Can Run,
It's fantastic.
which is set in a remote village in Northumberland.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
I could do. It's about a young girl who is very surprised when her father, previously fairly reclusive, lets a stranger into the house. And then she hears a fight break out, and thinking her father's in trouble, she runs into the kitchen and finds the stranger is bleeding out on her kitchen floor. Her dad urges her to run, and in the attempts to escape, he is shot, and she is left on her own. And she realizes that the only people who can help her are the aging villagers that she's ignored her entire life. And we're calling it the Thursday Murder Club meets Reservoir Dogs, which I'm very pleased with.
I like that.
I'm calling that to be,
I will take that up. Yeah, that's what I'll call it as well. Well, I messaged you after I finished reading it. You very kindly got me a proof copy, rather than I normally always request digital arcs because I know how expensive proof copies are for people to send out. So I'm very, very grateful for the
not a problem
physical copy. I was smiling when you were talking because people are coming. We've already got loads of people in saying hello, so we'll go through those in a sec. But earlier this week, I messaged you because I loved this book.
Oh, thank you.
I loved it so much. We'll go through the hellos and then I'll fangirl a little bit.
Sure.
So
I don't mind fangirling. It's fine.
Absolutely not. No. Hi, Kaz. Hi, Steve. All the way from America, coming to join us. Hi, Leslie. Somebody should be editing, but this is better. Who is that? I can't see all the comments. It does this thing where it only shows me some comments, so I'm not sure who that is. Hi, Sarah.
That could well be me, Sam. I should be editing, really, but
so should I.
This is better. They're right.
Somebody said, wishing you all the best with the new book. It's an unusual action thriller. I'm wondering if that is Leslie. Did I just catch that? Chris McDonald should be editing. Hi, Chris. And it was Leslie that said that. Oh, it's blooming brilliant. Now, as everyone who knows me knows, I'm a former army wife. So there was something really like going back into a moment in my history by reading this. I didn't live in a remote village, but there's so much about it that was familiar to me. Thankfully, not gunmen in my kitchen. Don't need any of that. Definitely don't need any of that. I've got enough going on. But it's just such a wonderful thing. Is Colburn, I Googled it, and because I was thinking of Colburn, which is, so is it kind of a completely fictionalized version of a village, or is it kind of based on one, but you've given it a different name?
I kind of know where it is, but it's a fictional village. Yeah, I roamed all over Northumberland when I was researching for the book, which was lovely. It's a nice way to research a book. Stick a rucksack on and just put your boots on and hike all over the place.
I bet you've got good boots as well.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Yeah, I do a lot of walking. So I went everywhere, and it was in that kind of weird period where kind of semi-lockdown where you're allowed to go for walks but not much else, so it was always very quiet, had plenty of time, but I couldn't find exactly the right village. I could find villages that had some things that I wanted but not others. Some were too close to town, some had too many roads coming in and out, so it was too easy to escape. So ultimately I decided to create my own village, but I put it in an area which I know very well. I know that all the places around it. So some of the things, most of the things that are referred to in there are real, just not the actual village. And I got my wife to draw me a map because my drawing is abysmal, which I've got on my wall and it's lovely, but I sent it to my publishers and they said, oh, brilliant, we'll send it to our artist. So somebody else basically copied Pam's map. It's pretty much identical.
Shall we see? I'm quite good at how I stack the books now so that I don't knock everything off on my head, which you've all been witness to because as we've established, I'm a moron. I've got, you can't see it because I'm like, there you go.
Very well, but that's my wife's map.
I love that.
And you can see it's pretty similar.
Really similar, yeah.
Yeah.
That is gorgeous.
I know,
She's a
but she's
very
not
talented
speaking.
woman.
I know, but she's not speaking to me now because it's not her map in the book, so she thinks it's my fault.
No, we need to tell her that you won't have any say in that kind of thing. That's not how it works. You might have a say, but if they don't agree with your idea, then
that's pretty much true.
They might let you think that it was your idea.
I get consulted on things, Sam. I get consulted, and then they tell me what's really happening. Actually, this one wasn't. The title and the tagline are both mine right from the start, so I didn't change any of that, which was really unusual.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you already knew straight off. Did that really help with you focusing on exactly where the story was going to go?
Not really, actually. Almost the opposite, because I originally envisaged it as a kind of road movie. I thought it was going to start in exactly the same way, but then Ruby would escape the village and go on the run and be being hunted down, basically. But I very quickly realised it was much more interesting if we stayed in the village with the villagers and kind of kept them at siege, really.
I really liked that you did that.
It's more
There's
claustrophobic.
So many things that we can't talk about, but I can say it's such a satisfying book. It is such a satisfying book. But I'll tell you about that afterwards when we're not in front of people who haven't read it yet. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. Steve says, a quick hello to everyone in waiting room for an appointment, so may have to run sooner than later. At least you're not running like Ruby. So that's Kaz wants to know what's next for the Northern Crime Syndicate.
That's a good question. Let me just run through things in my head. We were supposed to be doing Manchester, Crime Central that Rob does.
At Christmas, yeah.
Yeah, but that got knocked on the head because of the weather and the trains and everything.
The trains were cancelled. The weather was bad. We were gonna go and pick up Chris Sims to take him to that one, and then the event was cancelled.
I mean, basically, we were all ready to go, but all the people in Manchester weren't going. So we were like, there's not much point. There's not going to be anybody there,
It would have been just me sat in the audience, I think.
So he's trying to rearrange that, but I think it's proving quite difficult because he plans so far ahead.
Yeah.
So we might be doing it on a kind of individual basis, in pairs and stuff like that. And we are talking. I don't know if I can talk about this. What the hell? I talk about everything. We are talking to Baytels about doing something with them next year.
Nice.
Like a fringe event on the edges of the festival, really. One of our Who's Crime improvisation nights, I think. And we're doing something. Actually, we are doing something in Teesside. Hold on, I've got so much on at the moment.
Getting the diary out.
What the hell's happening? We're doing Crossing the Tees in Middlesbrough on the 10th of June. I think that's our next proper gig, and that'll be an improv thing as well, I think.
They are fun. And I've only seen them online, so I was looking forward to the one in December. But hopefully I'll catch you when you come back. Because they're on tonight. Oh, you've gone dark. Do you need plugging in?
No, it's all right. I'll tell you, I've got a big computer behind the computer I'm doing it on, and that just went dark for a second. It'll be fine. I'm going to try my little light as well. Okay.
And you've just done, Donna's saying hello. You've just done Donna's event down in Brighton. Yeah, we did Brighton.
Yeah, I dragged.
And you've had a busy week as well. So tell us about Donna's event in Brighton, and then tell us about the week that you've had.
Okay. Well, I wanted to support Donna down in Brighton because of all the amazing work she does, and putting on a festival off her own back was astonishing.
Not an easy thing, is it?
Yeah. So when she asked us, I said, "Yeah, we'll definitely do this." And whether I can get the whole gang down there from Newcastle to Brighton was a different question. And a couple of them were working, so we took 4 of us down, and then we had 3
sub-ins.
So we got Githa Lodge came in and helped us, Louise Mumford, and Joe Furness, who lives in Brighton. So it was
all brilliant.
Yeah, and they were all fantastic. So the 3 who didn't turn up, they're on warning now that if they don't come again, we can replace them easily.
I've met Githa and Joe.
Yeah.
Hilarious. So I can only imagine just how much fun that was.
Oh yeah, it was fun, and Louise Mumford's really funny as well. She was a natural, so yeah, it was great fun. Really enjoyed it.
I've not met her in person, but yeah, lovely
Yeah,
woman.
it was a brilliant festival. It was really good.
It seems to go really well. I know Donna's planning the next one, and she's going to try and let me know which weekend it's going to be on, so I can make sure I'm free for this one. Wasn't free for that one.
But yeah, this week you're asking me
Sarah
about
and
this
Rob,
week.
you've had a week with.
Well, last Friday was my Newcastle launch for You Can Run, which we did at a private library in Newcastle, which was brilliant. It had about 90 people there. Great fun. Hosted by a friend of mine, Ian Payne, who's the main newsreader on Tyne T's television.
Right, okay.
So he's very polished. So I just have to rock up and, just tell a few jokes and mess about. And Ian does all the professional stuff, which is really cool. And then on Saturday, I was in Durham Waterstones all morning, pretty much 10 till 11 chatting, and then 3 hours signing books.
Wow.
Which was lovely. I had loads of people I hadn't seen for years stumbled in. I went to Liverpool on Tuesday with Rob Parker and Sarah Moorhead. We did a thing in Waterstones. And again, I met a guy I was working with 26 years ago. I hadn't seen since, so that was nice. And then last night, the final thing for now, I've got some more starting on Saturday, was at Goldsborough Books in Covent Garden. Myself and Kate Simmons had a joint launch because she was on my MA at UEA way back in 2015. We were on there together. And Harriet Tice was on there as well, so she introduced it, and then we had a bit of a chat, but mostly it was just an excuse to meet loads of friends and drink.
And what a lovely place to do it in.
It was beautiful. Yeah, it was really lovely. Really enjoyed it.
And Rob and Sarah, both fantastic. Obviously, I've met them both. I've seen them, do live stuff a few times now. So
yeah, and they're really good.
Brilliant.
It's when you do these things with your mates, it's so much easier.
Of course it is.
Yeah, it's just so easy. The chat just goes really quickly. It just flew past.
I bet it did. And I bet you did nothing but grin the whole time.
That's pretty much true.
Sarah Blackburn wants to know what your next book is about. We need to talk a bit more about this one because I've got so many questions about the book.
Very, very, very briefly, I'm working on I've just signed I haven't actually signed it yet, but I've just agreed a new 2-book deal with Quercus again.
Congratulations.
Yeah, which is great because You Can Run was the last one in my previous contract. And I'm working on a police procedural series, provisionally called Mind Games, the first one.
Nice.
And what else can I tell you? It's about a cop who has a death sentence hanging over him. That'll do for now, I think.
Okay. That's
a small teaser.
That's a huge teaser. That's not a teeny tiny one. That's huge. Right, let's go back to You Can Run and let's talk about basically the star of the show is Ruby. Weird for you writing a 16-year-old?
That's not what I'm hearing, Sam. I'm not hearing that.
Really?
I'm hearing Margaret. You're
going to hear a lot about Margaret as well. Yeah, Margaret's terrific. But their relationship is one of the things I wanted to talk about as well.
Yeah, okay.
So I thought Ruby was terrific, but unusual for you writing, writing somebody who's about to turn 16.
Yeah, it was a difficult call, really. Clearly, as we discussed before I came on air, I'm a lot older than that. I experimented with it a bit to begin with before I committed to actually doing it. So I wrote to get the book approved. I don't plan, so I couldn't send a synopsis because my deal was for 3 Jimmy books and then one other. Right. And of course, I then had to pitch to my editor what it was going to be. And because I don't plan, I can't write a 1-page plan and go, this is what's going to happen because I have no idea. So I just wrote the first 10,000 words. So first of all, she looked at them, but I also sent them to a couple of YA writers that I know really well to have a look to see what they thought about the voice. I also, Victoria Selman and her gang asked me to write a short story for one of their Afraid of the Shadows, Afraid of the Lights anthologies. It was the Halloween one. I think it's called Afraid of the Shadows.
It might be.
There's 3 of them, and I get them mixed up. And I thought, well,
there was Afraid of the Lights, Afraid of the Christmas Lights, Afraid of the Shadows.
Yeah, I think it's the Shadows. It was a Halloween one anyway. Yeah. So I tried the voice on there. So if you dig out that anthology, you'll find a short story in which Ruby features, but she's slightly different. It's a slightly different village. It was more me trying out the voice to see if it would work. And it went down pretty well. So I thought,
that's a clever way of doing it.
Yeah, well, I hate writing short stories. I have no idea what I'm doing half the time. They're too short. I can't develop anything, So I thought it was an ideal way to try something out. And it seemed to work okay. So after that, I thought, okay, I'm going to commit to it. But I also knew that I didn't want her to carry the entire book. And I thought the way of avoiding it being too much like a YA novel was to surround it with older villagers, really. So you get the voices of Margaret, you get the voice of Danny, and you get one of the soldiers as well. I think that's it.
Yeah, mainly. I mean, obviously there are other characters.
Yeah, there are other characters, but those 4 are the only ones who actually get a voice as a narrator, if you like.
Yeah, and I absolutely loved the lot of them. I loved the whole. I'm reluctant to bring up the dog, but let's just have a little snippet and then move on.
Well, there are 2 dogs actually in You Can Run.
There are, yeah.
But the one who gets the most airtime probably is a little white-haired, ugly, yappy terrier that nobody likes, and he's called Boris. I was slightly surprised when the Daily Mail gave me a good review the other day.
That's what made me laugh when I saw that you'd shared.
Yeah, I know.
So we'll move past that now, though. But I thought it was worth noting because it just really made me laugh. Danny's a really interesting character. Margaret, there's characters that come in later on that I'm not going to mention.
Okay.
Cool. And you'll know exactly who and why.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but for anyone who's read it, they'll know who and why as well. I love the whole thing. I just thought the way you've set it in a remote village in the middle of nowhere that's, and you've got soldiers patrolling the streets, but are they soldiers? Are they mercenaries? Nobody's really sure. And then it's quite obvious very early on exactly, who they are and what they are. So they were really interesting. And I loved Ruby. I really did think Ruby was a great character to focus on.
Thank you.
I thought she was fantastic. And it is hard, I would say, to get a teenager's voice right when we've not been teenagers for a while. But I think everything felt authentic, everything about it.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to try and get it right. I mean, my daughter's a bit older than that. She's 25 and she had a look at it as well. But she also works in a university with the younger students, so she's got a good insight into that, and she thought it was fine, and I wanted to make her really feisty, as Margaret is as well. So the 2 of them apparently have nothing in common, but the more you get to know about them, the more you can see they're pretty similar in the long run.
You feel like,
and I liked having
a
friendship between a 15-year-old girl and an 80-year-old woman is a lot of fun.
I feel like that's a bond that's going to last as well when you read them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Everything that they go through, and they are both feisty and they both stand up for each other.
Yeah, exactly.
And they didn't think they were going to like each other at all. They thought could they trust each other? But actually, there's a real bond. I want a better word for bond, but
I did, and I did it intentionally, and nobody will notice, but it kind of made me smile that the first line of Ruby's first chapter that she narrates is almost identical to Margaret's first line in her chapter. I think there's 1 word difference. So it's something like something weird is going on and something strange is going on. But it was kind of a flag to go, these 2 are probably a lot more similar than you might think they are.
Really interesting as well to set it in a village where, because of how the houses are positioned, you can kind of work it so that people can move around, which is, again, what makes it believable that in this small village, people are missing each other. Yeah. And it seems very carefully thought out.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's why I started to draw a map. But my drawing was terrible, so my map was like straight lines and words that just said house here and stuff like that. But I needed to make sure that what I was writing would work in a geographical sense, if you like. So yeah, that took a bit of working out. But also, I've got one of the things I wanted to kind of mention. Obviously, it's not a big theme in the crime book, but a lot of these places are being destroyed by Airbnbs, second homes. So, any of the facilities are closing down, schools are closing, shops are closing. And I wanted to kind of have that as a background thing, but it was also convenient for me because it meant a lot of houses are empty, which is very useful in this story. Yeah.
Of course it is. Somebody's just said, they really liked Lucas. One of my
Lucas, yeah,
favourites was
you vote for
Lucas.
Lucas. That's cool. I like Lucas.
I like Lucas.
It's kind of awkward teenage boy, really.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that, yeah. Awkward teenage boy, heart in the right place, something always on his mind, no matter what the situation, which Ruby kind of takes with good grace, really, actually. She just kind of finds it funny.
Yeah, she does, yeah. Lucas is, he's got no side to him, really. What you see is what you get with him, I think.
Yeah, which is quite refreshing.
Yeah.
You literally know what he's thinking at any given moment, and it was really nice. And he was there was a scene where Ruby's really annoyed, and they have an argument, and he goes off, and then he comes back, and she can smell burning, and he's cooking her some food after this argument.
I thought I only got the audiobook myself. They sent it to me last Friday, I think. So while I've been traveling around, I've actually been listening to my own audiobook, and I was listening to it on the train, and that scene made me laugh quite a lot. It's pretty funny.
It is. It's really funny. Yeah. I think, Leslie said Lucas has very much a one-track mind. Yeah, he absolutely does.
There is that, but he's quite sweet in his own way, I think.
He is sweet as well.
I remember he's trying to feed her sausages and suggests that she was hangry.
That really made me laugh.
That just makes her even more annoyed with him.
What was really surprising, it's so, and I said this to you when I sent a message about it, it's so stripped back.
Yeah,
you know, it's very with Jimmy, there's always so much going on. There's a lot of people, and there's a lot of noise, and it's busy, and you know, it's in a busy place, and there's so much going on. With Ruby and Coldburn and all the villagers, it's very much slowed down. I mean, it's got great pace as well. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a slow story, but it draws you in a different way.
Yeah, I think that's true. I wanted to strip it back. It's you know, at its heart, it's a fairly simple story, really. I mean, the backstory perhaps is a little more complicated, but what happens in real time, and it's set in the present tense. It's set in the present time and the present tense. Yeah. So I think I knew when it was coming out, so I started in February 2023 in the story, I think.
That surprised me when I opened it, actually.
Yeah, and the whole thing takes place, I mean, roughly over about 30 hours from start to finish in the book, which is an incredible timescale for a 90,000 word novel, I think. But I kind of enjoyed the challenge of that, really.
Yeah. I did really like the whole stripped back nature. You had more time to spend time with each character, really develop people, really understand the feel of the village. And then you started it snowing as well, and my heart was but interwoven within all of that, you've got the humour, you've got these relationships, you've got these surprises within the relationships, which I won't discuss at all.
It is tricky discussing a new book, isn't it? It's really quite hard.
It is, but then you also put in moments that absolutely chilled me. And then you went back to the other bits of the story. So 1 minute, there was one scene, and you'll know exactly which one it is, and I'm not going to say it, where I actually shuddered. I was actually chilled by this one particular scene. And then other scenes where you're in a tense moment, and then you're laughing because of something that you've written. And I loved that. I loved the balance of it all.
I think if you go, I've always feel if you're going to fairly dark places at times in the book, then you need to leaven that out with some humor in other places as well. It can't be just intensely dark all the time.
Yeah.
And I think I know which. And there's a really dark scene in there that was really quite hard to write.
I bet it was, yeah.
In fact, the guy who did my launch with me on Friday said that he thought his parents would love the book, but he wouldn't give it to them because of that one scene. He said that would just disturb them too much.
I think I'd have to, what is it they call it, redacting? I'd have to put lines over something before I could give it to my mum.
Yeah.
She doesn't really do crime. She'll read cozy crime, so I've sent her some. Well, I give her some when she comes round for a tea on a Sunday. I give her different books. But this, I won't be passing this one on now, but I think she'd love Margaret. And she always used to say that she loved that I was feisty, which is the word that seems to be being thrown around for me now. I didn't realise I was feisty, but apparently I'm feisty.
I think you're feisty.
But yeah, my mum likes that, so I think she'd really, really like Ruby. I think Lucas would make her laugh, but she might be a bit surprised as well about young men.
I think in all the books, one of the things that connects them are that the women are always really strong. I always try and write strong female characters because that's my experience of all the women I know. They're all strong. So
I like that you also do give them a vulnerable edge as well, because that's what's real.
yeah,
We might be strong women, but at the same time, there are times when we are completely, we feel vulnerable or out of our depth, or we go back to previous patterns, and you understand that really well.
Yeah, and physically as well, of course. I mean, Margaret is really a strong-willed woman, but physically, of course, she's not capable of standing up to a brutal soldier, for instance.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that was, obvious, really, that there were limits to how much she could fight back.
Yeah, you must have had a lot of fun planning how everybody, well, not planning, when you came to how everybody was moving around and how people might avoid each other and how people might bump into each other, and scenes with Danny. I love Danny. Danny was really surprising. The more we got to know him, was more and more surprising.
It's like an ancient Bruce Willis, I think, Danny, in my head. That's kind of how I see him. I also see him as a kind of distant cousin of Jimmy from the other books. He kind of,
I can see that.
could have gone a different way quite easily and ended up in the same position as Jimmy, but he never quite went that far. He was a bit more kind of sorted, I think.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. The more you get into the story, the more you see just how the village is interacted, even with all the Airbnbs coming in, and the fact that it's empty a lot of the time. It could be quite an isolating place, but actually they find ways of getting on with things.
Yeah. Well, it is a problem. Certainly in Northumberland villages and elsewhere.
I hadn't realised it was so bad.
Yeah, it's very bad. If you got the proof, you probably didn't see the acknowledgements, but I talk about probably about 10 years ago, I was playing cricket in Bamborough, which is a town, a big town, really, with a beautiful castle. And the cricket pitch is right outside the castle. So the castle is the backdrop to the cricket pitch. And we were talking to the captain of the local team afterwards, and he said, "You probably won't be able to play us anymore." And we were like, "Oh, what? We want to play by the castle. It's amazing." And he said, "I just can't get a team up. There's no people here. There's hardly any people living here. I can't get 11 guys to play cricket because there's nobody here." And it blew my mind.
So strange.
Yeah, and there are towns all over the country like it. There's one in Wales called Abersoch.
Oh yeah.
If you look it up, there's a huge Guardian story about it, where almost everything that kept the village going is closed. The school, the shop, everything. So, and also people who were born there can't afford to live there. They can't afford houses. So if you grew up as a kid there, you have to move away because there's no work, there's no housing.
Oh wow.
So it's a real problem.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Abersoch. I went to I think it was Aberdaron. And that was a few years ago, and it was a cold, wet day, so there weren't many people about anyway, but you could just see that it wasn't, as bustling as you maybe would have expected.
I think
we were the only people in the pub having, and it wasn't even lunch. There's clearly not enough people for them to have the chef. Yeah. So we went in the pub and got scones. That was it. That was what they had.
I think I'm probably the only crime writer who's written 4 books that deal with housing issues. It's a bit weird.
I went down there from Mark Billingham's book, The Bones Beneath.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which Bardsey Island is set just off the coast there, and we couldn't get to it. We hadn't checked the weather before we went. Hadn't occurred to me to, and you couldn't see it through the fog.
Oh wow, okay.
So yeah, it was really atmospheric though. I'm glad we made the drive, but next time I'll prepare better.
I'm going to Wales next month. I'm doing the crime festival, the Crime Cymru. That'll be good fun.
I'm hoping to go actually.
Oh wait, it looks. I've never been to Aberystwyth.
Finally meet you in person after all these years.
That would be lovely. Yeah.
Right, let's have a look at some of these comments. Mills cried laughing at the name Boris. Sarah loved all the relationships that Ruby had with everyone in You Can Run. I would agree with that. I mean, that girl goes through some stuff.
Yeah.
But she handles it really well. And I thought really realistically, there were. It's again, I'm trying to think what I can say.
I'm not going to help you.
What I can say and what I can't say. No, I know you're not going to help me. She finds some things out, and the way she handles it, and the flip flop of feelings that she has, I thought that was really well done as well.
Yeah, I mean, her life has exploded really, instantly, with no warning whatsoever, and she has to try and deal with it, and it's clearly not easy. And only does it really with the help of the people who surround her, ultimately.
Was it strange for you to write some of the soldiers' personalities after obviously being in the Navy? I'm hoping that these aren't based on people that you know.
No, then maybe
so.
Silver is probably the only one who has I wanted to show the human side of at least one of them, which is why I gave him a voice. And also, I mean, it is slightly disturbing, and of course this is fiction, but there are private armies out there, and nobody really talks about them at all. But there are huge organisations that have their own armies and hire them out. And it's rarely discussed, and I kind of wanted to touch upon that as well, really. So they're not quite soldiers, really. I mean, they clearly, and some of them have been.
Yeah.
But they're basically a private army. I don't think that's giving too much away.
No, I don't. I was wondering how to word it earlier on. So, yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. I like that Silver, you get a real liking for him, and then you have to check yourself because you think, actually, this is this guy who's doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And then you forget again for a minute because he's a very likable character. And then you feel bad for liking him. And I think that was really clever as well.
Well, I think I just wanted to kind of show his motivation, really, how he's ended up in this position.
Yeah.
Because you can see how it might be possible for somebody like that, really.
Absolutely. You can really see how he just end up where he is.
Yeah.
And how he tries to toe the line of not going too far.
Yeah.
And doing his job, but no more, no less. He's not an inherently bad guy, even though he's not necessarily a good guy either.
Yeah. Well, he likes to think, I think he thinks of himself as civilized, but then when he sees what he's doing and who he's surrounded by, he has to question his own judgment about himself, I think.
And he does question his own judgment, which makes him, you've made him very human, which is even scarier in a way.
Yeah, I think so. It is more terrifying when you think actually it seems to be a reasonable guy.
Seems to be a reasonable, normal bloke, and then look where he is and what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sarah said Trevor's a fab person to meet in person. Mills
That's very nice.
says,
thank you, Sarah. We met at Baytels a couple of weeks back.
I know, she had a lovely time.
And Sarah was lovely as well, by the way.
She'll like that.
Sorry, I'm reading Mills's thing.
One of the spaniels likes Trevor's voice so much she just sent my phone flying. How's that for a compliment?
That's a wonderful compliment.
A couple of times I've had dogs kind of jumping around the room looking for me, and I've said it's because I'm a new voice. In the background, authors going, the dog won't calm down. I said, show them me, let them look at me, and then they'll see where the voice is coming from, and then they'll calm down, and they have done.
There must be something when I did Donna's thing in Brighton. I stayed with my mate Fran Quinn. I don't know if you've read Fran's books.
I lent it to my mum, The Smallest Man, and she loved it, and I haven't had time to read it yet, so I bought it ages ago.
It's fantastic.
And I don't get a chance to pick anything up.
Absolutely brilliant. And her second book, that Bone Setter Woman, is even better. I think it's brilliant.
Really?
But I stayed at Fran's house, and she's got piles of cats, and they just wouldn't leave me alone. It was just like, I mean, I've got my own cats as well. I love cats, but these three just were climbing all over me the whole time. It was bizarre. So my voice is like catnip for animals, I think.
Absolutely. Apparently you give great hugs. Sorry. Trevor gives great hugs. I'm tongue-tied. And Sarah says she's blushing now. Thank you. Sarah wants to know, do you have a favourite go-to author that you will drop everything to read their latest book?
Whoa.
You must get asked this even more than I do.
Yeah, and I always come up with a different name every time and then think, oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that one and that one.
Yeah.
I think actually, well, I was chatting to him last night, so I'll name drop him because I do quite a lot. Dominic Nolan, Dom Nolan.
Yeah, I interviewed him last year.
I mean, lovely guy for a start, really
Yeah.
funny guy. But his 3 books, I've loved every single one of them. First 2 are a series, I guess, but I'm hoping he's not stopped it, but he's taken a break from it. Called
My
come
mind's
on,
gone completely
yeah,
blank. I
and
know.
mine. God, that's shocking.
I can
Past
picture the
Life.
covers. Right,
Past
Vine
Life.
Street is the standalone.
Yeah, Vine Street is the latest new one. I did know that. It's Past Life and After Dark are the 2.
Well done.
Past Life is the first one, and they have a main cop called Abigail Boone, who, this is not a plot spoiler, right at the start of the first book, she's hurled off a building, and she has total retrograde amnesia and can't remember anything about any of the people that she knows. So she doesn't know her son, she doesn't know her husband. And it's not just a cop story, it's about what makes our relationships work. And if we have no shared memories, do we have a relationship? Because relationships are based on the things you share. So it's a really clever book about humanity, really. And it carries on in the second book, but it's also really dark and quite brutal. She's trying to find out in the first 2 books who it was who threw her off the building and what it's all about. And she mixes with some very, very, very horrible people.
He's not a man who holds back, is he?
No, he is not. And Vine Street is an epic kind of. He sent me the proof and said, "Oh, would you have a read?" And then I don't read on ebook very often, but I opened it, and it was like I don't know what it was. It was about 800 pages. It's about
Quite a big
140,000
book.
words.
Yeah.
So it's an epic, sprawling book that covers a long period of time, but superbly written. He's a wonderful writer.
He really is, and he was really fun to interview. We went out a group of us after Crime Central in Manchester after Rob interviewed Dom, and that was a really fun night. And yet he takes everything in, doesn't he? He just kind of sits and takes in everything around him.
It's really bright. I was sat in the pub with him and Amir Anwar after my thing in London last night. So and that's a pretty good combination.
I would imagine it is, yeah. Yeah, I saw Amar on Monday night, and yeah, he's such a lovely man.
Top guy, top guy. His books are brilliant as well, of course, but you only asked me for one, so you know.
You can give me as many as you want. Kaz asked if you write in silence or you need music. I'm well aware that I keep talking about the book, which is the whole point, but I'm ignoring everybody's questions, so I'm just having a little look.
Let's go wherever it takes us. I do write in silence, because I'm a huge music fan, and I couldn't concentrate. I would just be like, let's listen to another track. Let's get this on. So those 2 things are separate. I can listen to music when I'm reading, oddly, which my wife thinks is really weird. Yeah,
I can't do that.
I think I've got two different bits of my brain of processing it. I don't know, but I don't find that a problem at all. But I can't have music on when I'm writing because I would just get completely distracted.
I can have, if I'm sat reading something and somebody else in the room is sat watching TV, that doesn't bother me. I can just completely block out the TV. But if there was music on, I don't think I could block it out while I was reading.
Yeah, I don't know why I can do it. It's weird.
That's very strange. When I used to write a lot of non-fiction blogs, I used to be able to, I had an Arctic Monkeys playlist from YouTube. No, it wasn't a playlist. It was live at Reading and Leeds Festival or something. And I'd heard it that many times, the full couple of hours. It was my kind of, I've got an hour and a half to write, that's what I'll put on. And I'd heard it so many times that just block out all the other noise. It was like white noise. I could either tune in and listen to it, or I could zone out and have it in the background. But I don't think I could do that for fiction. Our brains, funny things.
They're headlining Glastonbury, aren't they, this year, I think? I'm going to
you're way more hip and with it than I am. I have no idea.
Yeah, they definitely are.
Is that, are you into, I know you're into bars, because I know Kaz was asking about your bars of the world. Have you got a favourite one? Which I think is a very mean question. Now I've just asked it.
I've just posted.
But are we still doing music festivals and stuff?
I'm going to Glastonbury in June this year. Yeah. Yeah, I do quite a lot of music festivals if I can. When I
I
get
know
the
Ben
time.
Bruce normally goes to, for anyone who doesn't know, Ben's one of our admins and runs a brilliant quiz once a month. And he usually goes to Glastonbury.
Yeah, it's just a great break. We go for the whole thing. So the gates open on Wednesday, although the main music doesn't start till Friday.
Right.
So we're there from Wednesday until the Monday morning, just chilling, really.
Oh my word! Are you not exhausted at the end of it?
Yeah, absolutely in pieces. Yeah, yeah. It's when you leave the site, there's a fantastic service station called Gloucester Services. I don't know if you've ever stopped there. It's on the
Possibly.
M5.
I
Probably
don't
about
drive. I have no idea what motorways there were.
it's about an hour and a half up from Glastonbury. It's kind of past
Right.
Bristol and a bit further north. It's the same people who run that spectacular one on the way to Manchester on the M6, which I can't remember the name of.
I can
But
picture that
that's
one
the
as
first
well.
stop. It's the first stop after Glastonbury, and everybody's just in such a state that everybody heads for the proper bathrooms to clean up, and they're all. It's like
Oh no.
it's like a zombie apocalypse at a service station, basically.
No, I can't imagine that. I'm tired from one overnight trip, so I can't imagine 4 or 5 days. I'm too old for that.
I love it. It's great. I've just seen Sarah says about other crime festivals. I'm very excited about going to Shetland Noir as well,
Nice.
which is kind of coordinated by Anne Cleves, who only lives down the road, really. I've done a few things with Anne recently. And I saw Shetland Noir and I said, oh, I quite fancy that. So she's helped me to get there.
Oh, that's lovely. Kaz
and it's lovely
interviewed her the other night.
Yeah, it's, I've never been to Shetland. It's, going to be beautiful, I think.
Yeah. That sounds like an amazing trip.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
Kaz interviewed Anne Cleves at, I think it was Waterstones in Huddersfield. I want to say
she did, yeah. No, I saw that.
About 250 people in the audience, braver than me.
Yeah, well, that was what I did at Baytels. I interviewed Anne Cleves and Brian McGilloway in the opening panel, and there was
I saw a really good photo of you, actually.
Yeah, it was great. It was lovely because they're really lovely people as well. And the audience are all there to see Anne Cleves, so that they all turn up at 9:30 in the morning. It was absolutely packed. It was great. We signed so many books afterwards. It was great, and I didn't even talk about my book at all because I was the moderator, so I was just interviewing them. But I've never sold so many books. It was amazing. Well, Sarah was there, so Sarah can tell you it was absolutely rammed with people.
Somebody did ask earlier on about is it more tiring doing the work or doing the promotional traveling around and stuff?
Yeah, the promotional stuff is way more tiring. Yeah.
I don't know how you manage it because you're always out and about. You're all over the place.
Yeah, I do. I say yes to everything. Well, as Donna knows. Do you want to go to Brighton? Yeah, I'll go to Brighton. Last year I did Brighton and Berwick 2 days apart. I did
They're quite far away,
aren't they? On the Saturday and Berwick upon Tweed on the Sunday. Yeah.
So north and south.
Yeah, completely. Yeah,
about as south as you can get.
Yeah, and about as north as you
can get.
Well, without going to Scotland.
Scotland, yeah. I'm just going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Sarah was saying it was really busy.
Yeah, it was crazy. My wife actually was volunteering there, so she was monitoring the queue and writing down people's names to sign the books for, as she was going through, which was quite sweet.
Did you ever expect to be traveling so much when you started out writing?
God, no. Well, you don't, I mean, you just hope you might get published. That's pretty much the only thing you're thinking about, really. I hope I get published. Thinking about what happens after that doesn't really enter your head until your book's out there. And then you realise that, unless you're Anne Cleves or somebody like that, you're not going to get promoted hugely by your publisher. You're not going to get posters on the underground and adverts on the telly or anything like that. If you want people to know about your book, you've got to get out there and talk about it, really. But of course, it's a pleasure. Why would you not want to talk about your book and talk to readers who are interested about your book? It's the thing you kind of dreamt of when you were writing it. So when it actually happens, you're like, yeah, of course.
So how long were you working on You Can Run for?
Generally, I generally spend about 9 months writing a book from start to finish. Generally, I mean, they expect crime writers to churn one out a year. I know some do it more than that, which is unbelievable to me. But So it's kind of a bit of a treadmill, really. You finish one book and then you've got kind of 9 months to write the other one. If you take into account editing and stuff, there's the year basically. So I know that I can get a pretty good first draft out in 6 months, and then I've got 3 months to make it a lot better. And I'm pretty much on target with the new book, I think.
I think it's astonishing. I'm tired just thinking about it. Mills has just said, I probably shouldn't say this, but I miss Jimmy.
Oh, yeah, I know. But
Jimmy's a lovely character.
And I think the last line of the final Jimmy book was "Never say never." So let's go with what Jimmy said, shall we? See what happens.
I reckon we'll mither you into it at some point.
There might be.
I think it's good to have a break though after a trilogy. I think putting another book in there. I know a lot of authors do it. I know Mark Billingham wrote a lot of Thorn books and then started putting in the odd standalone and the start of a new series now, which is, if I can do it without knocking everything over, The Last Dance will be out in, I'm sure it says it's somewhere on it. I should know this. I think it's June. Because
probably.
I'll be interviewing him. But
if the proofs are out now, it's probably around.
It's usually June. I'm pretty sure it's usually June. But it must be kind of nice for your brain to have a little break from Jimmy and do something different, and then have time to kind of mull it over again.
I mean, obviously, it's slightly easier if you're writing a series because you know the characters. So as soon as you start, you kind of know what you're dealing with. So it takes a little bit longer to kind of get into the characters when you first start. But once you've picked it up, it's fine. And of course, it's a nice change to write about somebody else. But we may see Jimmy again. We might see him on the telly. Who knows? That would be nice.
That would be very nice. I think that'd do really well. You can imagine, can't you? I can see it. It's a very visual book. I can literally see it playing out in my head.
Yeah, I mean, there are, things are happening. There are people working on it. Also, I don't want to go too far down that road, but
we'll all just cross our fingers collectively.
It's a lot nearer than I thought it was a couple of months ago. Let's put it that way.
That is great.
To be announced at some point, I hope. Maybe.
Do you have any preference if things happen? Do you have any preference on whether a TV show or a movie, for example, would you want it to be true to what you'd written, or would you be interested to see what somebody else did with it? How would you feel if somebody wanted to do something different with it?
It's a bit like what we were talking about earlier, really. The option, the people who've optioned the Jimmy books, the contract is very clear. I'll be consulted, but no more than that. Somebody else will write it. So I don't really have any control over it. So I tend not to think about it too much. But it would be interesting to see what somebody else does with it. It's very hard to adapt your own stuff. There's hardly anybody who does it because TV shows are by nature much shorter than books. So you can't, if you put everything that was in the book in a TV series, it would be like 20 episodes and go on forever. So you have to chop a lot out, and writers don't want to do that to their own books. They don't want to lose characters. They don't want to take chunks of the plot out to make it simpler, because it's too painful, isn't it? If they might say, oh, you can only have 2 main characters. You've got to lose one of the trio. And I couldn't. Can you imagine? I couldn't do that.
No, that is not a nice decision to make.
So I have no control over it at all, really. So I just kind of hope they get it right. I mean, they've absolutely vowed that it would be set in Newcastle, which would be a kind of deal breaker for me.
Yeah, I can understand that because it's a character in and of itself.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, and it's my home city, and the whole reason I wrote the books was to show how much I love it and how fantastic it is, despite the dark nature of the books. So yeah, it's got to be set in Newcastle, unless if they cast a Geordie actor, great. But if they cast a brilliant actor who can do Geordie, then I can live with that. That's fine.
Would you want to be in it?
Well, passing stranger in the background or something. I know
Anything.
Some people do.
Would you want to be any of it?
I think Mick Herron popped up in Slow Horses at one point. Just wandered through the back somewhere, I think.
Yeah, Paul Gitsham was on with Kaz last night, and he said, and I had spotted him, but I didn't realise it was a running thing, that Harlan Coben is generally a guy doing something on a computer in the background.
Yeah.
And I have spotted him, but I hadn't realised he's in, as many of them as he is.
Okay, yeah,
I didn't realise that was a running thing.
I mean, he's quite striking, isn't he? He's a very tall, bold guy. You can't really miss him. But
Did you ever watch?
Why not?
Sorry,
why not? I wouldn't mind walking through the background. That'd be quite good fun. I don't want a speaking part.
You don't want a speaking part?
No, well, I'd send all the dogs crazy. It would be mad, you know?
But that's good, because then all the people with pets would be putting it on just to see and then you'd end up being.
Damn, people will be watching it because it's good, man, not because the dogs like it. Come on.
I know, but that's one way of going viral on TikTok. Your voice comes on the screen and all the animals go crazy.
Yeah.
That would sell some books. That's not it's not a bad thing.
Okay, I'm making a note here.
Making a mental note. Sarah says Colin Dexter used to be in the Morse shows.
Oh, really? I did not know that. And I don't know what he looks like, so I wouldn't have recognised him anyway. So
Mills thinks you should play Jimmy.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. That's a backhanded compliment as ever I've heard one.
And Sarah said, I can imagine you can run as a TV show. Yeah, absolutely. Of all the things that I've watched lately, I think it fits right into it.
I did last night. I'd invited, when I used to write for the theatre before I wrote the crime books, and also wrote some TV scripts and some film scripts that all kind of got in development, if you like, is the phrase, but never ever got made. But one of the producers who I used to work with a lot came to the London launch last night, and I gave her the book and I wrote in it, I think this would be a great movie, no pressure. So she's taken it away. So who the hell knows, you know?
I like that. I like that you boldly going for it, because I think you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. You do need to. Yeah, you do need to.
When you've got to do so much promotion, and I mean, you must be between online events, emails and social media, and then you're doing all of that while you're writing.
Yeah, sometimes you have to cut yourself off from it a bit, but it's really hard when you've got a new book just out, because that's the time to shout about it, really. So it does kill your writing a bit. I haven't done any writing this week at all. I was intending to do some editing on the trains, but I was too busy listening to my own audiobook to do that, so that never really happened. I'll get back to it tomorrow. I promise myself I'll do it.
I've done a few hours on a coach this week, and I had planned on taking some things with me to do, and then I realised that it wasn't going to happen, and I was right, it was either too noisy or I fell asleep because of the movement of the coach. I just kept falling asleep.
I can't, I've tried, but I can't write on trains, but I can edit on trains. I can edit other stuff that I've already got.
Really?
But I can't start stuff from scratch. It just, my head's not in the game properly, I think.
I think I wrote one page of something from an idea that came to me, and then that was that. Put that away. I couldn't do anything else. It was so noisy. But I think it's just so interesting sitting and looking around.
Yeah, of course. Stuff's always happening.
You take so much in. You must find that. Do you find yourself writing down snippets of conversations and things that you hear from people, or do you find that something will inspire a character?
Yeah, more that than conversations. I don't really write down conversations, but now and again I see things and think I'm definitely using that. Sometimes it's incident, sometimes it's just the odd phrase or the way somebody behaves somewhere. Quite often it's actually places and things that I see that I think I'm going to use that as a scene, you know. There's quite a few things in the book that I found when I was just wandering around Northumberland, little snippets of history and information that kind of snuck their way into the book.
Sarah wanted to know if Ruby will find herself in another book at some point. So obviously you've mentioned a short story.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's a kind of ending that makes it possible for further things to happen. No plans at the moment.
Because you could write her younger life.
Yeah, and my
That'd
editor,
be quite interesting, even if they were. Ruby and Alex were background characters in another book, and we just got to see how it all came to be.
With the story of Ruby as it is, I think it would be really boring, wouldn't it? Because she makes it very clear that she's done very little. She's only
Well,
got one
that'd be
real
quite
friend.
funny that she had no clue and we'd all know and we'd all see what was happening. And she'd just be this oblivious, happy little girl frolicking about in the middle of the
I don't think it would be a
countryside.
crime book this time. It would be a, coming of age story or something. I guess this is a coming of age story, really. But
Yeah, I would say it is.
yeah,
Would you consider writing something like that, YA or
I'd write a
something
rom-com.
cozier that my mum could read?
I'd definitely write a rom-com. My wife wants me to write rom-coms. I keep explaining that it doesn't suit a gritty crime writer to write a rom-com. It's a difficult sell. But I co-wrote about 12 comedy plays, and the film scripts that I did have in development, both of them were rom-coms of different kinds. So I could easily adapt one of those, I think, and I quite enjoy that. But that's for later, I think.
Are we not doing that right now? Are we
No,
focusing on crime now? Sticking
for
to
a
where
bit,
you are?
For a bit. Well, you get more, rom-com writers don't get to go to fantastic festivals and meet readers very often. There aren't anywhere near as many of them. Whereas we have tons of crime festivals and we get to meet loads of readers. So I'm not leaving
going
from
on.
that.
There's never a dull moment.
So,
Is that?
and
I just
I will
spotted
be. I will be at Harrogate. I don't think I'm doing anything there. I'll just be hanging out in the beer tent probably.
Then I shall see you there.
Yeah, I'll definitely be there.
I've just spotted the pictures behind you, the framed book covers.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my daughter did those. I like whenever I have a book come out, she sends me a present of a framed cover, which is really lovely.
That's so lovely.
Yeah, I know, she's a sweetheart. Brought her up well. Well, she lives in Canada, so I don't see as much of her as I'd really like to, but she's coming back home for a couple of weeks soon.
You do go and spend a bit of time there, don't you? I know you put it on your social media, so it's not a secret.
Yeah, no, it's not a secret at all. No, we do. I mean, fortunately, my wife's an academic, so she can get a sabbatical now and again to go and work out there in one of the universities. And obviously, I can work anywhere, really. I mean, provided it's not around the time the book's coming out and I've got to do promotion and stuff. If I'm in the middle of writing, I can write as easily in Canada as I can here. So we now and again we can go away. Last year we went away for 3 months, spent 3 months in Vancouver, which was lovely.
I knew it was for quite a while. I didn't know it was as long as 3 months.
Yeah.
In one chunk, in one go.
Yeah, it was great. Wow. I mean, we've been there quite a lot. That's why Rebecca's ended up over there, because she knew the city pretty well before she went and studied there. So we've been over there 4 or 5 times for quite long chunks. Not quite as long as 3 months before, but 6 weeks, 8 weeks sometimes. Yeah. But 3 months was lovely. It's like it's like going to live there really for a while.
How lovely. And what a nice way to end, because it's 8 o'clock.
Oh, wow, is it? Yeah, that went quick.
It does disappear when you come on.
Really
thank you to everyone who has watched and asked questions and commented. Thank you so much to you for coming back and letting me rabbit on again.
Pleasure. Absolutely.
Absolutely
Always.
Love having you on. Do you want to give us a final quick reminder of You Can Run, which is this brilliant book here?
What about what it is, or just show this book? It's lovely. It's a great cover, by the way, isn't it?
It is a great cover. It's gorgeous.
I'm just going to stick with my.
It's beautiful.
Thursday Murder Club meets Reservoir Dogs. Just remember that. I love that pitch so much. I just keep saying it.
It is fantastic.
It was originally it was my wife's idea, and she called it the Thursday Murder Club meets Deliverance, which is equally good.
Deliverance.
Equally good, but I thought not enough people know Deliverance because it's a much older film from the 1970s.
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
It fits the story very well. Deliverance is about 4 guys who go on a kind of expedition into redneck country in America, kind of Louisiana kind of territory, I think. And they kind of take things a bit for granted and they upset the locals, and the locals react very, very badly to them. So I can see the similarities with it.
I'm a bit of a scaredy cat when it comes to watching things. Would I be okay with it?
Yeah, you would. Yeah, it's more a kind of psychological, scary film. There's a couple of scenes that are not particularly pleasant, but
I don't mind gore. But yeah, I'll tell you afterwards, because people will start sending me weird images.
It might have dated terribly. It's an old film. Right?
Thank you so much. I hope you come back next time for the new book.
Will do, of course. Thanks, Sam. Bye-bye, everyone.